At NCC, we believe in the Northampton Way. To us, there is no other way. That means lifting each other up when we face hardship and saluting each other in all we achieve. And we are not just a community college. We are a community. We are NCC strong. And you are our top priority. We know that times are tough, but we are right there with you, listening to you, assisting you, motivating you. So when all this is done, let's celebrate together and congratulate our students for overcoming this hurdle, because that is the Northampton Way. Well, good evening and welcome to the 9th Annual Humanities Endowed Lecture here at Northampton Community College. You know, our prior speakers have included Doris Kearns-Goodwin, Michael Beschloss, Wes Moore, Will Allen, Colin McCann, Bill McKibbins, Margaret Atwood, and Temple Grandin. A really impressive group, made all the more impressive by this evening's speaker, John Hope Bryant. We are thrilled to have him here for what promises to be both an incredible but also a very thought-provoking conversation. Northampton Community College's annual Humanities Endowed Lecture was seeded by dollars that we received initially from the National Endowment for the Humanities, and then supplemented by donations we received from local donors, many of whom are on the Zoom today. So I want to thank you for your support that makes this lecture possible. You know, it's an incredible opportunity, this lecture, for our students to see world-class speakers and to engage with them personally in ways that are incredibly educational for each and every one of them. It's also a wonderful opportunity for the public to come in and see the same speakers, all of this for free. So it's a wonderful event. Lots of thank yous go out. First of all, to Dr. Elizabeth Bugagas, our Dean of Academic Affairs, and Caroline Clifford from our Institutional Advancement Office for putting together all the logistics for this evening. Thanks also to Nevi Harris, one of our students who will soon be introducing our speaker. Thanks also to Professor Bill Mutimer, who put together the theme for this year's program, Empathy and the Entrepreneur, Fostering the Business of Doing Good Through Social Entrepreneurship. What a great theme that is. And finally, thanks to Raja Bhattacharya, who will be our moderator during the question program of tonight. So have a great time. You're going to have a wonderful experience. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Erickson. Good evening. I am Bill Mutimer, Associate Professor of Theater at Northampton Community College. Our annual humanities theme this past year was devoted to empathy and the entrepreneur, fostering the business of doing good through social entrepreneurship. Some of our events included the documentary Code Girl at Arts Quest with a talkback facilitated by NCC's Ann Richards, 1 Million Cups at the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, Improving Lives, 3D Printing and Prosthetics with Dr. Michael Gorski, whose Lehigh Valley company Filament Initiatives provides prosthetics to individuals in need. In Pod We Trust, how digital audio is reinvigorating and democratizing journalism at the National Museum of Industrial History. I believe that in this time in our history, students and young adults are finding their voices to speak out. There's no better time to teach them about social entrepreneurship, how they can use their voices and their resources to speak out against today's injustices. This brings us to our speaker tonight, John Hope Bryant, an American entrepreneur, author, philanthropist, and prominent thought leader on financial inclusion, economic empowerment, and financial dignity. He founded Operation Hope Incorporated, which believes the journey to financial independence and a secure future begins with the knowledge and tools to support personal aspirations. To introduce Mr. Bryant, we have Nevi Harris, a current NCC student majoring in biotechnology. Her compassion and her passion, though, is writing, and she has just finished her first novel. Nevi participated in our 2019 Student Business Pitch Competition, where she came in first and is now working on developing her company, Phantom, which will produce eyeliner for all women. She served as an intern at the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship and is currently employed by Crayola. Nevi has impressed everyone at the CIE along with myself, and I believe she is the best student candidate to introduce tonight's speaker. Please welcome Nevi Harris.
Good evening. My name is Nevi Harris, and I am majoring in biotechnology at Northampton Community College. Today, I have the great opportunity of introducing our keynote presenter of the evening, Mr. John Hope Bryant. Mr. John Hope Bryant is an American entrepreneur, author, philanthropist, and prominent thought leader on financial inclusion, economic empowerment, and financial dignity. Mr. Bryant is the founder, chairman, and CEO of Operation Hope, Inc., the largest nonprofit and best-in-class provider of financial literacy and economic empowerment tools and services in the United States for youth and adults. The last 5 U.S. presidents have recognized his work, and he has served as an advisor to the last 3 sitting U.S. presidents from both political parties. He is responsible for financial literacy becoming the policy of the U.S. federal government. Now let me turn the microphone over to Chairman Bryant.
That young lady is impressive. I mean, forget about me. That's the whole show. Like, she is the inspiration that you see. We model what we see. Any young person seeing her and saying, I can be her already, is halfway to the goalpost. I want to thank you for having me. I'm so impressed by all the team members I've met. Your president is a force of nature. Elizabeth is a force of nature. We're born on the same day, same year. Actually, she's younger than me, but same day. And Bill and Raja and Caroline and all the heroes and sheroes that make up this place that is known to the world by your formal name of Northampton Community College, but is really a collection of souls who believe. And I have 3, by the way, one of your alumni is a friend of mine, which is Mario Andretti. Just a random fact. I have a full accredited racing car license. I'm a race car driver in my spare time. And I've actually driven with Mario. Well, he drove me very fast. I have 3 colleges that I'm inspired by. I spoke at Gettysburg College, and I'm inspired by their story and a lot of their history, which of course is literally on a battlefield that speaks to America's history. I'll get to that in a minute. And I cried when I walked that battlefield. And I'm inspired by Compton Community College because, and their president, Dr. Curry, because I'm from Compton, California, and South Central LA. It just has a lot of meaning to me, and I have one of our Hope Insides on that campus. And now I'm inspired by you. And I've spoken in a lot of places. I've been to 100 different countries. I was with the Delta CEO earlier today, interviewing him, and I was one of his 1,000 top flyers up until we were all grounded in February. And so I've been around, and I've seen places and spaces on almost every continent. You've got a magic sauce. And I understand why you've been successful. And I think that if every community that I care about and for whom has to rise in the next decade or else for this country, if they had a Northampton, they would be successful too. And I didn't stutter when I said that. I'm going to get into why I mean what I just said, but let me frame the conversation. Let me start by saying we're sitting in a moment in history. That history does not feel historic when you're sitting in it. It just feels like another day. But that doesn't mean that the moment you're sitting in is not, in fact, historic. In the city I'm in now, Atlanta, Georgia, the biggest economy in the South, the only international city in the South, where of course we have 3 HBCUs within rock throw distance of each other, and there's no mistake that we have economic achievement for Blacks and have these 3 HBCUs dating back, one of them through to Reconstruction, a second Reconstruction. I'll get to that in a minute. That's based here. The largest, busiest airport in the world here in Atlanta, the home to the Olympic Games, the only city in the South that hosted that. It was home to Dr. King, who gave 2,600 speeches, 6 million air miles over 13 years, and lived right around the corner from where I am now. History didn't feel historic to Dr. King. It just felt like another day of unappreciation, because no good deed shall go unpunished. He gave that I Have a Dream speech 100 times before the March on Washington. That's why people knew it. That's why Mahalia Jackson said in the middle of the speech, "Tell them about the dream, Martin." Translation: can you stop with this speech I've heard 10 times and riff a little bit? So he started almost rapping. He left the script and he started talking about the part of the speech you actually remember. Go back and watch it. He left the script and he started reimagining who we could be as a country and a people. And back then when he said that, it sounded completely crazy. But really, when you look at Northampton, it's a dream that has been literally realized in our lifetime. Let me step back to where all this began and where we went wrong. America, and I'm going to speak a little bit and give you a sneak preview into my book that comes out October 6th, Up From Nothing, which is about the mental game. It's about the mindset, which is where I think we're going next, and that is the next battleground. And it's called Up From Nothing on purpose. Up From Nothing, the untold story of how we all succeed. And let me now step back to explain to people where we went wrong as a country. I'm going to try to do 400 years in about 4 minutes. The word white is a made-up word. Didn't exist anywhere in the world except America. And what happened was you had these, and just to make sure nobody thinks I'm picking on them, you had black slaves trading black folks on the African continent. You had Arab slave traders, you had European slave traders, you had all kind of stuff because it was bad economics. And it was bad capitalism. And when they got to the shores here in 1619, you had indentured servants. And they were white from Britain. They were folks trying to get folks out of Britain. They were sick. They were uneducated, viewed not to be valuable. They sent the prisoners to a penal colony called Australia, and they sent others who weren't valued to America. And the poor whites and the poor blacks began to work together as indentured servants. And then they got upset with what we ultimately became plantation owners and ran away. So you had 2 whites and 1 black ran away together. And when they were caught, the owners of the plantation said, "Oh, we can't have this. We can't have them getting along." They're running away from each other. They'll start collaborating with each other and they'll overtake us. So they told they told the Europeans, "You know, you're white like us," the wealthy people. Ignorance is a powerful thing. And they gave the white people 2 or 3 more years worth of indentured servitude, which was contract slavery. And then they were free and they got 50 acres each. And they told the black person, "You're actually, same crime, you're actually a prisoner for life. It's a life sentence." That was the first slave. And got no land, of course. That was where the division came. So this silly thing about white versus black is a made up situation. And we don't have time to get into why racism is also scientifically stupid. But let's just say this, it's all about where the sun was in proximity to you and me over thousands of years. Why are black people dark? Because Africa's hot and the sun is direct. Why is our nose wide? Because because the universe, the higher power made it so that the air cooled your lungs before you died. The kinkiness of the hair absorbed the heat rays before it cooked the most soft part of your body over your brain. And why do we have big lips? I don't know, but everybody wants them. That should make you laugh. Why my white friends have narrow nose? My friend Raj is like, what kind of speech is this? Why do my European friends have narrow nose? Because Europe's cold. It heats the air before it goes in the ear lungs. Why is the skin the way it is? Because that skin is great for cold weather. My friends in Nordic regions don't get cold. Why is the hair long? Covers your ear so you don't get cold. My point is, you adapt it to your local area. And the craters realigning shifted the continents away from each other, but we were all one. So we were all one family. Back to the story. I want to get through this in 4 or 5 minutes. So 1619 was the beginning of a really bad business plan. Fast forward now, 264 years, really. And here's the problem. For the contract with this country was you work hard, play by the rules, and work with these, and you'll get the benefit of your labor. The problem was that you work really hard, and the guy in the big house got the benefit of your labor. It's called, I call it a reverse transfer of labor of income. So that's a reverse transfer of income. And because you were capital, if you were black, you could not create capital. You literally were insured, financed, sold, bought, traded. It was more valuable than land, real estate, because you could have a bad labor agricultural year, and you couldn't get away from that, but you could actually transport human cargo and sell it someplace, him or her someplace else. That was human capital. So you had labor and capital. And this went on for 264 years, and you got, if you were black, you got zero for that. Zero. Think about a Monopoly game where you start 300 years later, okay? It's the largest reverse transfer of wealth in world history. Why? Because we are the largest economy in the world. And in I'm fast forwarding now, in 1840, circa 1840, the word millionaire was created in New York City because three-fourths of all the trade in New York was cotton-based. What was the richest city in the world per capita in 1840? Natchez, Mississippi. What was their business? Cotton, and you know the rest of the story. That's where the wealth came from, but blacks didn't participate. Now let's fast forward now to the end of the Civil War. And you had the Abraham Lincoln, God bless him, after the Emancipation Proclamation, called for a freedmen's bank to teach freed slaves about money. This is the beginning of what I call social entrepreneurship and financial literacy. He chartered a bank called the Freedmen's Bank through the Freedmen's Bureau to teach free slaves about money. Unfortunately, he was assassinated the next month. And one of my proud marks is I was responsible for getting the Treasury Annex building, one of the oldest buildings in America, renamed the Freedmen's Bank building across the street from the Treasury Department in honor of these former slaves. A guy you know to be a freedom fighter named Frederick Douglass, an abolitionist, was really a businessman. He owned $6 million today's money in real estate in Baltimore, Maryland. And he rented it out to working class blacks. And he took the profits from that and made himself a social entrepreneur and a freedom fighter to fight and to abolish slavery. And that's the story that you know about him. And he went to go run that bank and put $10,000 of his own money into that bank to try to save it. So it reminds me of for those who want to dabble with socialism, it reminds me of a quote from Shimon Peres. He told me in Jordan, even if you want to distribute money like a socialist, you have to first collect it like a capitalist. You got to make it before you can give it away. Back to the story. And why is this important? The first message is that black people, as brilliant as we are, and we've been doing so much with so little for so long, we can almost do anything with nothing. We never got the memo, my last book, on money, free enterprise, economics, ownership, opportunity. We're not dumb and we're not stupid. We're brilliant. But it's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. It's what we don't know that we don't know that's killing us, but we think we know. What are the two areas that blacks, in this example, have excelled? The arts and professional sports. Why? The playing field is level and the rules are published. And there's a farm club, and I'm now getting to why I love you guys so much. There's a farm club system that nurtures creative talent, churches, etc., art class, etc., band class, all that, middle school, high school, and professional sports athletes will be picked out from small towns there in Pennsylvania at middle school and nurtured all the way into the pros. But what happens with the engineers, the business managers, the computer scientists, all the folks that you guys train there? That doesn't get trained up in this country. There's no intentional system. And so, of course, it hasn't happened. That's all of GDP. It's almost like Northampton has been chasing GDP since you were founded. It's really brilliant. Now, that talks about a business plan. Let me back up now. What I think we're in right now is a third Reconstruction. It's the first time I've ever said this in any public venue. I'm going to be talking about this all year, the next year. I think we're in a third Reconstruction. The first Reconstruction was the freedom from Britain. So 10 or so years before and after 1776. The second Reconstruction, and that was about independence and freedom. Then you had, for some, and then you had the second Reconstruction about 100 years later, 1855 to around 1865, and if you want to be generous, 1870, and it certainly was ended over by 1874. That's when the Freedmen's Bank failed. It was taken advantage of. So that was the second Reconstruction. And that was about physical freedom for Blacks, the confirmation of freedom for all, the introduction of social justice as a value proposition for this country, and the opportunity to fulfill your potential, and at that point, agricultural age and a bunch of menial labor. So the colleges that emerged at that time were teaching us to basically do what we were trained to do, that we had to do for no fee for someone else, and do it for ourselves. Great start, but no one taught us about money or how to create it, or how to own or how to build. Then 100 years later, you had 1958 through about 1970, certainly 1968 when Dr. King was assassinated, 1 year after your college was created in 1967. You had a second Reconstruction. I'm sorry, so you had the independence in 1776, first Reconstruction 1800s, second Reconstruction 1900s, and that was about empowerment through the right to vote and the creation of a thriving class. You had a surviving class in the 1800s, a thriving class in the 1900s that created professions. So where did the Black middle class come from? It came from the professions. Now I'm talking about black, but this is a bellwether for everybody else. There's more poor whites in America than poor anybody else, including there in rural parts of Pennsylvania. If you want to look at who was protesting and rioting in the early 1900s, it was all white. It was the immigrants who came here who were not being allowed in the office buildings. You see how this is a cycle? So the problem was that even when we got colleges, they weren't training us in the things that you're training your students in. The middle class came from World War II for Blacks. We were doctors and lawyers and whatever through the professions. Where we are at now in the third Reconstruction, going on between I think 2020 and 2030, is about economic empowerment, ownership, entrepreneurship, and a social rebirth of our culture, our values, and who we want to be when we grow up. That means that you are potentially the greatest generation. I want that to sink in for a minute. You can't subcontract your democracy. You can't assume anybody else is going to do this. And so I want you to know that this new space requires you to go from a surviving mindset to a thriving mindset, the 1900s, 2000s, to a winning mindset. A winner basically believed they were a winner before they ever won anything. I grew up in Compton, California, South Central LA, and I'll make the story short, but my mom and dad divorced, and I'm so glad one of your professors pushed me on this, so I made sure I explained it. I had no silver spoon when I was born. My mom and dad were descendants of slaves, and they had a high school education. And in 1970, I believe it was, 1971, they divorced over money. We owned an apartment building from nothing. Gas station, cement contracting business. But my dad was financially illiterate, never had any formal training like you'd get now from Northampton, and he wouldn't listen to my mother. He wouldn't ask for help. And Ambassador Andrew Young would say that men and women fail for 3 reasons: arrogance, pride, and greed. My dad was not greedy, but he was full of pride, and he wouldn't ask for questions. He wouldn't ask for help. My mother was a financial genius, and that success in our family needed a partnership. And this is part of the 5 pillars of success, which is found in this book, that if you get those 5 things, no matter who you are and where you come from, you can win. An example of this is my Jewish friends, by the way. They had the 5 pillars before the Holocaust. They had the 5 pillars after the Holocaust. And that is why they were able to pull through to the other side, even in spite of someone trying to exterminate them. We are at an inflection point now where because of the internet, because of technology, because of the 3-pronged crisis of a global health pandemic, and economic crisis, and a 400-year-old social justice reckoning, you actually can reimagine any future you want. You can be anybody you want. You can reimagine the world that you want to live in, and within a decade, you can see it come to fruition. Think about all the companies that were created in the early 1900s from immigrants who had nothing. Not even education, not even a community college education, which I think is extraordinary. That's what I had. But they were able to transform, they're some of the biggest companies we own that are in the marketplace today came from humble beginnings. Is that Goldman Sachs was a guy named Goldman and a guy named Sachs. Walmart was Sam Walton with a pickup truck, a storefront, and a high school education. And countless men and women and Latinos and Blacks and people of color have come up from nothing. This mindset, though, which again, hopefully we get into it in the Q&A and the 5 pillars we get into. I'm just trying to get the framework of this conversation in place. This mindset right now is everything, because the world's stress and problems will break you down. And if I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't feel good about me, I'm not going to feel good about you. If I don't love me, I'm not going to love you. That's why it's so important. My dad owned his own business. Yes, I didn't know he was financially illiterate, but my own dad had his own business had a sense of, yes, I am. My mother, who wasn't told she was loved by her mother and was told she'd be nothing by her school teacher, decided she was going to love her child into success and told me she loved me every day of my life. So I had a sense of, yes, I am, and yes, I can. And then when I was 9 years old, a banker came in my classroom and taught me financial literacy, my own little Northampton experience. And he didn't want to be there, but the government made him come through the Community Reinvestment Act. And it's still in effect today. And I remember asking this white banker, what do you do for a living? And how do you get rich legally? He said, young man, I'm a banker and I finance entrepreneurs. I said, sir, I don't know what an entrepreneur is, but if you're financing him, I'm going to be one. And I left him and went to the liquor store that sold candy in my neighborhood, talking about reimagining. And I said, you're selling the wrong kind of candy. He said, go away, little boy, I've got a college degree. I said, that's nice, I've got cavities. And I went, and he wouldn't listen to me, so I had him hire me. He wanted to give me a fancy job as a salesman and the clerk at the counter. I said, no, I want to be a box boy. That was the worst job he had. I want you to pick up every assignment that everybody else doesn't want. I want you to get up early and stay up late. I want you to hustle on weekends. I want you to be hungry for your own success, because only in the dictionary does the word success come before the word work. I want you to understand that success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. I want you to take no for vitamins. Everybody told me no, including this guy. So I went to the box room and I was putting inventory on the shelves, just so to figure out where he got his inventory on the side of the box. I really figured out what the wholesale rate was, the retail rate was, what his markup was, and I quit. Went home, borrowed $40 from my mother, who told me that life was tough, so she wouldn't give me the money. She'd loan it to me, a capitalist and a social entrepreneur. And I took that $40, went to what was then called Iris Food Store at Smart and Final, bought inventory, set up a neighborhood candy house in my den. I'm now 10 years old, and I ate through half the inventory. I hate candy to this day. Went back, got serious, sold the rest of the candy, made $300 a week on a $40 investment, about $1,000 a week now probably. Put the liquor store out of the candy business when I was 10 years old. Imagine what that did to my self-esteem and my confidence and my belief in myself, because half of poverty is low self-esteem and lack of confidence in yourself. Self-esteem is how I esteem myself. If I don't like me, I'm not going to like you. If I don't love me, I'm not going to love you. If I don't feel good about me, don't expect me to feel good about you. If I don't have hope, if I don't have a purpose in my life, I'm going to make your life a living hell, whatever goes around comes around, the most dangerous person in the world is a person with no hope. And my court already told you, my mother told me she loved me. I had this sense of confidence, and I had now the success in my hand. I had self-esteem. Now I'm dangerous. I didn't want to be famous. I wanted to be dangerous. And then I found girls and lost a business, a recurring theme in my life. But all that stopped. I'm married now, and I'm calm. But all that happened before I was 10 years old, and I had two of my best friends, well, my best friend and my uncle, murdered right in front of me. So you think you got a tough life. And I was homeless when I was 18 years old. So I want you to know that I am you. I want you to know I had a 500 credit score. I want you to know I almost filed bankruptcy. I want you to know that I am you and you are better than me. Presidents don't change the world. Governors don't change the world. Mayors don't change the world, with all due respect. People, normal people with extraordinary determination change the world. Entrepreneurs change the world. 90% of all jobs in this country, people get this wrong all the time, and then I'm done. I'm over my time. 90% of all, you ask somebody, where do jobs come from? This is how confused we are. We're it's like everybody wants to be an American, but Americans. We've lost our own storyline. It's unbelievable to me. The only people who benefit from us fighting with each other is China and Russia, who want us to fight. Like we're like, but everybody in the world wants to be us. Where do 90% of all jobs come from in America? The private sector. But if I ask my smart friends, they say 40% of jobs come from government, 50% of jobs come from government, 30% of jobs come from, no. You add up all jobs in the government, local, state, federal, government, it's 7 to 12%. Every other of those jobs come from the private sector, nonprofit, civil society, where you were founded. Your college was founded by small business owners and business leaders who knew that their need was a thirst for skills in 1967 in that local area that could be hired. So again, Northampton was set up for what I call the second Reconstruction. And I'm going to say it probably benefited mostly people of mainstream origin, because there was a makeup in that time. But now you have a diverse economy and a diverse community and a diverse culture and a diverse space. Guess who it benefits now? If you get the third Reconstruction right. I'm going to stop because I want you to not be overwhelmed. I want you to not be motivated. I want you to be inspired. I want you to let some of what I've said wash over you. I want you to not put too much stock in folks you see on TV or in the newspaper who are playing games. I want you to know that all legitimate wealth in this country and 90% of all jobs comes from the private sector and from the nonprofit sector. These are spaces and places that you can control. And when you create that wealth, the question becomes now, what do you do with it? And when I say become a millionaire, I don't necessarily mean monetarily. Can you help 1 million children? Can you create a church network? Can you create a daycare network? Can you create a charter school network? I don't really care what you do. Just do. I want you to build. Winners build. Survivors, thrivers. Thrivers, that's the middle class. That's your moms. That's your dads. That's my mom. That's the middle class. That's folks who cash checks, didn't write them. The third Reconstruction, this group here of builders, of winners, build things. Build wealth, build yourself, build your community, build your family, build this college, and go make a lot of money and build a lot of wealth so you can go create colleges all around this country that emulate this spirit. On that point, I'm done. Roger, I told you it'd be obvious when I was finished.
You absolutely, you were right when you said that to me. So John, before I get started and before we start our moderating session here, first of all, welcome to Northampton Community College, even though you're in Atlanta and I'm here sitting in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Hopefully.
I want to be an honorary member of the student body.
You got it. So you're already now an honorary member of our NEH speaker series. So I'm delighted to be spending the next about 40 minutes or so doing some Q&A and having some open discussion with you regarding what you just shared with us. But before I get started, for our audience there this evening, good evening. My name is Raja Bhattacharya. I am the director for the Follett Family Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship at NCC, so welcome. One small housekeeping items. If you all have questions, on the bottom of your screen, you should see an icon there called Q&A. That is where I would like you to put your question. I will be monitoring that, and I would, my goal is to see if I can accommodate all your questions. I can't promise that, but I will try my best. John, here's what I would like to discuss with you, and we can go, we can go whatever direction that you want to go. But I think the overall theme of entrepreneurial mindset is a really relevant theme for us here as a college. Just for your information, we also have a course for our students called the Entrepreneurial Mindset. It's a credit course that Northampton Community College students can take. And this is also an area that the college has invested in, and we are really interested to do some exciting, things along with courses and other program related to that topic.
Once again, you're ahead of the curve.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So my first question is, I want to reflect, to your upcoming book, the Up From Nothing. And you talk about the 5 pillars of success.
You have a nice book. You have a nice bookcase reading list behind you.
I know. Thank you. So, and I think it's what I would like to ask you is that can you share with us? So, what are the 5 pillars of success?
As much education as you can shove down your throat. A strong family structure. Self-esteem and confidence, role models, and an enabling environment, leading to opportunity. Now, you can have 3 of these things, 4 of these things, and be successful, no matter what. My Jewish friends, as I mentioned earlier, as one example, had all 5 of these things. It's interesting that my poor white friends who came from Europe, I mentioned, this is the book, and the Native American Indians who were here as original residents, and the African Americans who came from Africa. It's interesting, Raja, that they remain as a group unsuccessful by our definitions commercially today, but they lack 3, 4, or often 5 of the things I'm going to now read to you very succinctly. Massive education. What was denied? Understanding the numbers. Economics, financial literacy, the memo that we talked about earlier. What was denied? Even my poor white friends, they were treated as indentured servants. They were never taught, they were taught how to make some money, but not how to create any enterprise for themselves. They were never taught to be industrious. And as a group, they are not part of the ownership class today. So being white was not the criteria, to be clear, because there are more poor whites in America than poor anybody else in this country to this day. Number 3, and I'd argue that they are so frustrated today that they're agitating at the ballot box now, 70 years after the Industrial Revolution walked away from them in the middle of the 19th century. Family structure and resiliency. Family structure and resiliency, extremely important. Self-esteem and confidence. Role models, all this leading to opportunity. You get 3 of those right, any 3 of them, you got a shot. Massive education, the numbers, self-esteem and confidence. You're missing, in that example, you're missing, I think was, you're missing family structure, resiliency, and role models. You can, if you had massive education, that actually can substitute for family structure and resiliency. If you had massive education, understanding the numbers and role models. If you had role models, self-esteem, and family structure, And by the way, those are my threes. I thought about that. I had great role models: self-esteem and confidence, family structure and resiliency. I didn't understand the numbers, and I didn't have massive education until, I mean, you can look at me now. I'm obsessed with learning. Quincy Jones says that I asked him, how do you get so smart? He said, I'm just nosy as hell. I want to know everything about everything, right? So he listens, he learns, I read all the time. But I picked up these last two things, Roger. Massive education and understanding the numbers, I picked that up along the way. That was not embedded in me. So if you get three or more of these things, you can succeed. If you don't have the three or more of these things, it's not that you can't succeed, it's just that, and you don't have a rich uncle or somebody who works at a company who can give you we all succeed mostly through relationship capital, then the chances of you succeeding are tougher, particularly when you're in a zip code of people with a 500 credit score or less. Because now if you hang around 9 broke people, you're gonna be the 10th. The likelihood is if you hang around 9 broke people, you're gonna be the 10th. My best friend George, who was murdered when I was 9 years old, he was smarter than me, Roger. He was an A student, I was a C student. But I had great family structure, role models, whatever environment, and he hung around Tweet. My next door neighbor, he hung around Tweet, who sold drugs, and he got killed like Tweet, selling drugs. And so being smart is in and of itself, without the other pieces, is not enough. But what I want to do here is create a business plan that everybody could model.
That's wonderful. You know, as you were discussing the 5 pillars of success, and that is, I mean, every individual pillar really ties closely to the entrepreneurial mindset. There's no question about that. And one thing that piqued my attention, and it also relates to one of our audience question is this notion on role models, of how important that is, right? So the next question to you from one of our audience is, you know, who are some of your role models as you were taking this journey? You know, the level of success that you have achieved right now, but you also discussed with us earlier that the failure that you have also experienced as you're moving through that process. So who are some of those individuals that really helped you along the way?
Well, failure was my greatest role model, but I was forged by failure. I just changed the definition of failure and success. I said it earlier, but quickly because I was running out of time. I want to get to the Q&A, but I'll slow it down now and say success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And life is 10% what life does to you and 90% how you choose to respond to it, mindset. The only question is what response are you going to have? And I take no for vitamins, mindset. So I don't look at the 9 no's in 10 asks, I look at the 1 yes and forget the 9 no's. That's resiliency. That comes from mindset, comes from self-esteem. So not 1 ounce of my self-worth was defined by somebody else's acceptance of me. But my role models are people who basically I irritated, Roger. They didn't pick me. None of them picked me. I picked them. The forward in this book, when you read it, it's hilarious because Ambassador Young was like, is this guy real or is he like some slickster or something? And he took him a decade of me. I used to chase, I call him Ambassador Andrew Young, but AY I'll call him when I'm private with him. I used to chase, he's the last living lieutenant to Dr. King. I chased him around the country. I'd find out where he was speaking. This was no internet back then. I'd find out and I'd buy a plane ticket with the $300 I had left, you know, and I'd get on a plane and I'd stay at somebody's house and I'd go terrorize him wherever he's speaking. Ooh, 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 ooh. And one day he got sick and at a conference, he said, oh, I'm not feeling well. It was in Houston, Texas, Corporate Council on Africa conference. I had never been to Africa at that point. Didn't have any interest in doing anything in Africa at that point. But I, you know, I got quick, you know, on Africa, I got smart real quick. I flew there, registered for the conference. That cost me $500. The plane ticket was $350, and I didn't stay in a hotel. But I had my chance. He's sick. I'll give you a ride to the drugstore. Okay. I borrowed a friend's car, got him in the car, and I poor man, I pilfered him with information. I just picked at him the entire time, driving really slow, like 10 miles an hour, to CVS or whatever it was. And he couldn't wait to get out of my car. And by the way, that didn't work. It took several other years before he actually paid attention to me. But now, of course, he's my play father. He's a global spokesman for Operation Hope. He wrote the foreword for my last 2 books where we talk every day. But it took a minute. Now, there was another time where Quincy Jones, I said, who are Black men who are international? Back in that day, it was just 2 guys, Quincy Jones and Andrew Young. And so I was already on Andrew Young's tail. So I went and found, so I said, Quincy Jones, I can't get to Quincy Jones. There was no Twitter back then. I can't get to Quincy Jones. How do I get to Quincy Jones? He's doing a fundraiser for a congressperson. It's $1,000. Think about how much $1,000 was 25 years ago. So I went and got in a consulting contract from a Foster shoe company, it was called, and for marketing. I had a gift for gab. They gave me, I said, well, what's the fee? I said, it's $1,000 a quarter, but I need the first $1,000 as an advance. Okay. I took the $1,000, paid the $1,000 to the company, to the organization who was doing the fundraiser to get access to Quincy Jones's house. And once I was there, because I was socially awkward back then, I just stood on a wall, Roger. And after 2 hours, I'm like, okay, this didn't work. I haven't met him. I don't know to talk to anybody. And I heard, do you know John Hope Bryant? At that point, it was just John Bryant. You know John Bryant? It was Quincy's voice. He was asking the congressperson if she knew me. He had read about me in a magazine that he owned called Jive Magazine. You can't make this up, Roger. But you had to. And so I went in, talked to him. We ended up talking for 5 hours, fell in love with each other's spirit, and he became a mentor. There are less interesting stories than that, but I probably have had 20 or 30 mentors that are significant that I can name, but I picked every one of them. And I just promised not to waste their time and only asked them for 15 minutes, and I made it worth their while.
John, let me ask you a question. Now, this is not only from a perspective of our college here, but let's say a course in entrepreneurial mindset, right? Something to do with our internal, how we think internally, our behavior, nothing to do with starting a business. Do you think that that should be a required course for a lot of college students?
Oh, it's brilliant. Absolutely. Because a mindset's not, entrepreneurial mindset doesn't mean you're going to become an entrepreneur. Okay. If you're running a household today, 70% of Americans have too much month at the end of their money. You don't think you need to be entrepreneurial about that household budget? You don't need to be entrepreneurial if you're a single mother watching this right now. You don't think you're entrepreneurial about what bills you're going to pay and how you're going to deal with this and how you're going to get to college and how you're going to pay for daycare and how you're going to get to work. You need to be solutions oriented and innovative in your thinking, and you need to create solutions for your family because excuses don't spend. So it's almost like if your name is Joanne Rodriguez watching this, then you say I'm Joanne Rodriguez LLC. I'm a limited liability corporation. I have an income statement and an expense statement. That's your household budget, what's going out and what's coming in. I need to be financially literate. I need to have assets and liabilities. I need to pick good debt, not bad debt. Good debt are things that appreciate. Bad debt are things that depreciate. Don't go financing jewelry. Okay. Don't put the Air Jordans on a credit card. It's 24%. All right. Don't get a Mercedes and go old Mercedes payments with an 18% interest rate on the car note. Don't do stupid stuff like that. You need to say, I am a brand. Of course, in this world we're living in now, you are increasingly on your own.
That's a great feedback, and I know that we have a lot of students, in this call, and I'm sure that they are listening to that. So I want to move to a question.
You're the first college or university I've heard do that, by the way.
Thank you, and we're proud of it, and it's our goal to grow that program. So I think our next question ties to what we just discussed about looking at our personal, how we conduct ourselves personally, and what kind of behavior we are able to evaluate personally, especially when you're talking about mindset, and we are also talking about how we redefine or reimagine what entrepreneurship is. So Dr. Gina Turner, who's a professor of psychology for NCC, has a question for you.
Okay.
In one of your interviews, you said people only change in bad times. Given the many challenges we are living through now, how can we get people to recognize, as psychology research shows, that having enough money to enable a sense of control over your life predicts greater happiness? But once you have enough money for comfort and security, piling up more and more matters less. and that comparing ourselves to others who have more can make people even more unhappy.
Well, this is first of all, thank you. This goes directly to one of the 5 pillars of success I talked about. I talked about self-esteem. That's how you esteem yourself. I'm stunned by people who spend money they don't have on things they can't afford to impress people they don't know about things that don't matter. It's unbelievable how much we waste. Think about how much time students, faculty, think about now to yourself, don't say to anybody else, don't embarrass it. Think about how much time you spend trying to impress somebody or get somebody to understand you and to endorse you, somebody you actually don't even want to be like. Because successful people are positive by nature. Successful people think about their ideas, and negative people successful people talk about their ideas, and negative people talk about other people. Okay, so if you're negative and I think not so successful, you're talking about other people, and we want to impress when we have the wrong business plan. The people talking about other people. The goal of this program that Roger's talking about should be to retune and reassess your self-esteem, to become reasonably comfortable in your own skin. When you love yourself, it's easier to love everybody else, and it's harder for somebody else to affect your view. And when you do love yourself, you begin to understand that if you have inner wealth, that you'll never be poor. If you don't have inner wealth, all the money in the world won't save you. So now you're defining yourself by the things. So there's a difference between a business person and an entrepreneur. A business person is trying to get something, get some income, get a standard of living, get a new car, get a location, get a vacation. They're trying to get a home, get respect, get a country club membership. But it's outside oriented. A entrepreneurial mindset, an entrepreneur is trying to build something, build myself, build wealth, build a community college, build a daycare, build a church that saves lives. It is defined by, is not defined by the outside world. It's empowering the outside world. So and once you've got your passion right, I ask you, what are you passionate about? That no one even asks people that question. What are you passionate about? Figure that out, and you do it for free. I mean, the stuff that I don't even work. I get exhausted. I don't get tired. I get exhausted. I can't type anymore. About every night, about 2 a.m, I just run out of juice every night. I don't want to go to sleep because I love what I do. I just go to sleep long enough to get rest. I sleep 5-6 hours. I'm back up again, but I don't get tired. And if you're tired, you're doing the wrong thing. So I think I over-answered the question, but I really think it comes down to that 5 pillars once again, and esteeming yourself. If you don't esteem yourself, you're gonna be looking for love in all the wrong places, and you're gonna be measuring yourself by the wrong measuring stick. This is not about a Mercedes or a car or how much money I made or how much money she made. I don't ever think about money. An entrepreneur, here's the thing, entrepreneurs are not trying to get income. A small business owner, we need them, that's half of this country, are trying to get way of life. They're trying to create cash flow that's better than what happens if you work for somebody. An entrepreneur is trying to build wealth, community wealth included, which often creates income. It happens, but it happens in reverse. So I don't think about money. I don't worry about money. I have more than I need, but I don't focus on it either. But I wouldn't stop what I'm doing for all the tea in China.
That's here's the question. I think it relates to, I've got a 13-year-old student that has a question for you, and I think she's at
in college.
She's a 13-year-old student. I don't think she's in college, but she has started her own business. So I'm going to read you her question verbatim, and I'd love to, would love for you to respond to her, because I think she's what you're talking about. She's at the first base. She's trying to kind of like connect that ball with the bat, right? And trying to get that success. So her question is that for a 13-year-old black girl starting a jewelry business, and she'll be showing her inventory on Facebook Live. If it was not as successful as she would have liked, what would you tell her? So she's in the process of selling her jewelry in the Facebook to market it. But if it's not successful, what recommendation you'd have for her?
What do you mean you're not successful? How can it not be successful? You're already successful. We're confusing ourselves. Success, entrepreneurship and like life is a journey. It's not a destination. The lessons come through the doing, not the arrival. You are already successful because at 13 years old, you're talking about and moving on a business on social media. This is a smartphone that most people use for dumb purposes. They've turned this into a dumb phone because they want to use it for rap videos and whatever, whatever it is. I don't mind watching videos after night after you worked. You got this into a smartphone, and because you're using it for its intended purposes, which is to create wealth and opportunity. You can't fall from the floor. You can't. Your reach to always exceed your grasp. So of course you're gonna be disappointed, but that doesn't mean you failed. Even you don't achieve all that you want. If you fall forward, you become smarter. I'm gonna give you another example out of this book. A young lady named Maury Russell, who is the granddaughter of Herman Russell, the largest black construction company in the country, I believe, maybe the world. And Maury Russell had a jewelry company. I think she was about 13 years old, and she had set up this jewelry company in Herman Russell's restaurant, and they provide catering and this and that and send out invitations, and she was hustling around flyers and whatever, and she sold out. And she went to her grandfather and said, "Daddy, Granddad, aren't you proud of me?" And he said, "Proud of you for what? I gave you a mailing list, an invitation list, friend list, catering, a facility, and credibility. How could you, unless the product was bad, how could you fail, right?" The question now is, what can you do on your own? Go hustle. Then I'll be impressed. You just did the reverse Maury. You just did it all without the rich grandfather. So that's why I was stuttering for a fact. You're already a step ahead of everybody, and young lady, you're gonna love my star chapter in this book. There's a guy named Mike Maples. I want you to get Roger's email address, and when you read this section on Mike Maples and how his father talked to him when he was 16 years old, I want you to send me a note.
Thank you for the advice, John, and I would be happy to pass for the information that you'd provide me. Love to do that. John, I would like to move to kind of like our next segment of our Q&A. And when I was reading your book memo, one thing that really caught my attention was the relationship between poverty and entrepreneurship, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea is that a critical factor is when you emphasize the lack of understanding of the free enterprise system, and how that directly relates to creating a sustainable life, right? In places like Ferguson, Missouri, or let's say Allegheny West in Philadelphia. And when you mentioned the Michael Brown episode, in the book, by the way, I was in Missouri at that time, but I was in Columbia, Missouri at that time. So Dr. Denise Francois, who's our Dean of our Business and Technology, has got a question for you that I think it ties in, well to this topic.
Thank you for being here with us today. Your writing is a sermon, a self-help narrative, and a clarion call for all of us. So I thank you and I appreciate your writing. My question for you this evening is, people tend to think of the poor and poverty in terms of charity. And your work flips the script by advocating that the poor need an infusion of capitalism, and capitalism needs what you call the teetering class. So why is this inclusive capitalism, the idea of putting in place ways to make more people beneficiaries of sustainable economic growth, an important concept for us to internalize, for us to support and execute? How do we all benefit from this ideology? And how do we make a trustworthy, deep-reaching commitment to this work?
Yeah, wow, that question put chills down my spine. I'm not supposed to be talking about this, and I didn't officially say it, but Dr. Deepak Chopra, who's a friend of mine and somebody I love and respect, and who's going to be speaking at our forum coming up October 19th and 20th. And by the way, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but we're going to get 100. They're between $1,000 and $5,000 each. We're going to give 100 credentials for delegates and VIP delegates to the college to award to faculty and students with whom you select to attend our forum. But Deepak's going to be speaking there amongst other heroes and sheroes. And he and I are going to launch a what we're calling at the moment a Black spiritual wealth initiative. And essentially my theory is this. I'm going to be launching a Black business initiative, which is the capstone of in a decade, bridging the gap of wealth and income inequality, because the Citigroup report just recently issued showed that only 20 years of discrimination is responsible for $16 trillion of lost GDP for America for Blacks alone. Forget the Latinos and other groups, and women, just Blacks, and don't even go back 400 years. 20 years of racism has cost America $16 trillion, or almost 1 year of GDP. And so that's when she says flip the script, that's what I'm doing. I'm saying this is not charity. You're shooting yourself in the foot. You can take no pleasure in the fact that there's a hole in my end of our boat. Because if we're in the boat together, you're going down with me. Or as I tell my rich friends eat my poor friends to do better, if only to stay rich. So what happened in slavery was they had to beat down self-esteem of these bulky Black men who were agricultural geniuses from Africa, who were brought here to toil this soil in the southern states that created this white gold called cotton. But you had to beat the self-esteem out of them so they wouldn't fight back, because they had you outnumbered and they would, of course, overrun. Well, after 300 years of being told you're anything, you probably believe it. And I think that a good majority of my African-American brothers and sisters in suits and ties are clinically undiagnosed depressed. And my white friends would be cray-cray too if it happened to them for half the time. So I think the fact that you've got a Jay-Z and a Oprah and all these folks is a miracle. The fact that you've got these folks who come through the middle class, the struggling class, thriving class, the winning class, in spite of all that, is a miracle. But I want to do a broad-based, decade-long push so we heal from that pain, so that we can believe in ourselves. You see what I'm saying? I can't give you self-esteem. It doesn't matter if people say that we can become capitalists if we don't believe it. It doesn't matter if people say we can become entrepreneurs and small business owners if we don't believe it. We will unconsciously self-sabotage ourselves because we really don't believe it. And we will do crab in the barrel and knock our friends down because we don't believe it for ourselves and we don't want them to get too far from us. That's low self-esteem, and it's not our fault, but it's now our responsibility. And so I think it's a two-way street. You got to get mainstream America to understand their next asset increase is minority America or underserved America. You got to get minority America to believe that they are worth the investment.
Absolutely.
I stopped.
No, I think that's a great feedback, John. So here's my question as a follow-up, to what you just said, right? And we also face that with some of our students here. And I think with the population that we are talking about, they dwell so much on the past that they cannot move forward. And we also see that with some of our students. And we also have a number of our students, that come to Northampton where their family truly does not believe that they should be in college, right? They do not provide that support. How do you overcome that? What are some things that you can do to overcome that? And are there any programs, let's say your organization like Operation Hope, that also works, with that population? And what are some initiatives that you guys have taken?
So Operation Hope is in 25 states, including Pennsylvania. Fulton Bank is one of our partners there, amongst PNC and a bunch of others there. So we're in Pennsylvania. And people should reach out to us for financial coaching, financial counseling, getting your credit score up, entrepreneurship training, small business training, home ownership acquisition. You want to surround yourself with people who have the same aspirations and dreams as you do, because again, role modeling matters. You model what you see. If you hang around an engineer, you'll probably become one. You hang around entrepreneurs, you'll probably become one. Why my businessman, my daddy was? Why was he a businessman? His daddy was. It's not rocket science, it's role modeling. why you have 5 generations in the military, because it's, I asked this guy from the Klan once, Raja, why are you in, he tried to burn down my church in South Central LA. Why are you in the Klan? My daddy was. He said it's Papa. Pappy. Why was your pappy in the Klan? His pappy was. Why was your pappy's pappy in the Klan? Because my great great grandfather created the local Klan. So wait a minute, you don't consciously hate me? He said, I never thought about it. I'm just doing what I does. See, it's what you don't know that you don't know that's killing you, but you think you know. And I think that we have got to break this cycle, because there's an old Southern saying, no matter how much I love you, my son or my daughter, if I don't have wisdom, I can only give you my own ignorance. So out of love, Roger, we pass down bad habits from generation to generation. This is so important to understand. With good intentions, if you don't know better, you can't do better. Poverty is taught and passed down with good intentions. Because, again, you don't need to go to that college. You need to go to work. Surviving mentality. What's that college? They mean well. They just think, what's the point? I made it this way. You should. No. You got to use that as a software. You are the software upgrade. And I'm going to say something pretty, and we do have a program coming up, Roger, that will come part of the new Marshall Plan. Please have your folks download the new Marshall Plan and look at it in the next 3 weeks. Watch for 2 initiatives coming out of that will help directly those people listening and watching who want enhanced services to what we're doing at Operation Hope. It's going to deal with your spiritual wealth, your confidence, et cetera, the 5 pillars, and your economic opportunity in total, and it will be national in focus. But here's what I have to say. I want people to be, excuse the bluntness, ruthless with their time, ruthless with their esteem. If somebody's wasting your time, you're getting older every day. For what? You got to understand that sometimes people who love you don't know how to love you, and they may give you bad advice with good intentions. My mother's mother loved her, but could not tell her that she loved her. So she actually sent the exact opposite message. And my mother realized that her mother, my grandmother, would take the 50 cents she got from cleaning a house and would go take that and go gamble. So once my mother got the memo that my grandmother, her mother, was gambling, when she said, "Girl, what'd you make today?" my mother would say, "I made 25 cents, Mom," and give her 25 cents and keep 25 cents herself and save it. She became ruthless about her own self-determination and her mother's well-being, because she knew her mother didn't know better, couldn't do better. And she ended up saving it. My mother's now financially independent, has a credit score of 857. I didn't even know it went that high. My mother's not black, she's green. But that's because she decided she was her own primary asset. I need for people listening to this, understand that eagles don't fly in packs. You've never seen a flock of eagles.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to understand you, and that's okay.
John, there are several questions here, and I think these all relates to.
I'll be quick.
So I'm trying to tie a lot of these questions together. So as all of us know, and I think I agree with you that we are going through a 100-year disruption right now with COVID-19, right? I think in your presentation you called it the third reconstruction.
And we're early, Raja. We're 30 years early.
30 years, right? You said we're 30 years early.
Yeah, there's a reason for it, because we can't kick the can down we're overdue for a cure.
It has disrupted our lives in every aspect. And when I'm looking at, especially from a business perspective, COVID-19 really has had a disproportionate amount of disruption, especially with the minority-owned businesses. I think just the type of businesses that we have. And I also see that, and I was reading a study by McKinsey, and it said that, the minority-owned businesses in this country has about $1 trillion worth of economic output annually. And if these are the bodega that we don't pay attention to, that's in our corner street. So how do you think in this time, the public, private, and the social sectors can come together to support this group? And let me also tie another question to that. There are there has been federal stimulus passed, and data have also shown that actually what the minority-owned businesses really got out of the PPP loan programs and others are well below, what the average was for other communities. And I am not too optimistic that there will be other federal programs that will be coming out anytime soon. So what do you think that we can do as a, as a community or a private sector that we can come together to help this group?
So first of all, you're going to be a little upset with me, Raja, because I was one of the people who helped to design the PPP program.
Okay. That's all right.
I got a call. It was one Saturday morning from Treasury, and they said, I was just so shocked. They were trying to help small business owners, almost fell over. The last stimulus during the last crisis went directly to the top, to Wall Street banks. So they said, we want to help small business owners, whatever. Can you, John, can you help us design this? Should it be a grant program, a loan program, a equity program? And I said, no, definitely government doesn't want equity in these businesses. Don't do that. So anyway, I scribbled something on an iPad, sent it to them, and a week later it was signed into law. It wasn't just my plan, but it was my ideas and others, I'm sure. I felt then that based on a level playing field, if people had the expertise that I had, and I had to get my own software upgrade in COVID, that they could have got the money. If they had called Operation Hope, we would have gotten them the money. But what I then learned was that 96% of the businesses, the Black businesses you just mentioned, Raja, don't have an employee. They're sole proprietors. So most Black-owned businesses are just self-employment projects. They retired from the school district, they got one contract with the school district, or they have one contract with the city, or one contract with, the local food company, but it's just basically a person at home doing graphics or whatever. They call it a business, but the banker is not your teller. That's not a banker. Okay. But they think the teller's a banker. They don't have a CPA or an accountant. They don't have books and records. They don't have relationship capital. And so when something like this happens, they're not ready. You can't get your books and records together. You don't have a relationship with the banks. You can't get in. You can't get in be prioritized to get the money. And what happened was all the businesses that have 10 employees, 20 employees, a relationship with their banker, as a CPA, books and records, they called up their banker, hey, this program's coming. The CPA's already done the job, got the books and records together, they already called the banker, made an appointment, and now when the money drops, they get that first. So it became about class and not about race for the first time. Discrimination became around class lines, not around racial lines, because no one was asking what race you were when you put out the applications. Oddly enough, most everybody who came through Operation Hope got approved. So we became your financial coach. And what I now believe is we need massive financial coaching for consumers, massive financial coaching for small business owners, particularly minority small business owners. And that's why my mission is to become in the next decade, the Starbucks of financial inclusion in this country. And again, I've got some stuff coming at you in about 3 weeks that I think will help a lot. But I had to get my own software upgrade. I'm trying to help, but it was obvious to me after this hit in the middle of this, the government stood up the 5th largest bank in America in 30 days. So the process was horrible. Website crashed. But by the way, the federal government's never given away money ever before this. Essentially, if you wrote that paperwork out, if you were financially literate, and you knew how to write off if you had employees, most of our employees, Black businesses didn't, but if you had employees and you knew, and you were literate, you could get $1 million loan, Raja, and never pay it back. Legitimately, because as long as it went to payroll or overhead, lights and things in the business, it was qualified. You don't pay it back. That's the magic of financial literacy. And so massive financial illiteracy and not getting the memo on money and not having infrastructure was the new racism, was the new discrimination, if you want to call it that.
Got it. So there's a follow-up question that I want you to address from Nicole Folina. Nicole is a business development coordinator with the Community Action Corporation of Lehigh Valley. They do a lot of work with us here at Northampton. And I think her question is really interesting as far as it ties to how can local businesses also be part of that solution when it comes to promoting these minority businesses that are struggling or going through this difficult time.
I really want to, I cannot announce this thing yet, but all you're doing is confirming we're on the right track. So let me back up and say, Raja, the last questioner said something, and you made an assumption, being provocative, that the money is done. And I would say that's not true. I think there's another $3 trillion, $3 to $4 trillion that's going to be thrown at resetting America over the next 2 years. Everything from bridges and infrastructure, which will create living wage jobs, all the way down to training. I think that you're going to see a massive, you had money thrown at this in a reactive way to get people just to survive through COVID. That was about 4 trillion, 5 trillion. The Fed window is still open, Federal Reserve window for banks and whatever's in Wall Street. That's why all the stock market is so liquid. That's another 2 trillion or so. And I think there's going to be a $10 trillion recovery. It's going to, and by the way, the last crisis was 187 billion, 2009. So this is multiples larger. But this is a 1 in 120 year event. Right. This is never seen in the world before. But by the way, how did America survive? How did America become a global power after World War II? It was the Marshall Plan. That was the equivalent today of $10 trillion. It was government spending, inspiring private sector development. That's going to happen all over again. So your business. So I think there's going to be a lot of capital trying to find a smart home. Listen to me now. Listen, everybody. A lot of capital in the next 2 years trying to find a really smart home. And so now to the question you said about small business owners.
Let me have Nicole ask you that question. So I think you can address that directly.
All right.
I often work with successful entrepreneurs that are looking to give back to their communities. In the age of the Warby Parkers and Toms, what advice would you give someone that would like to add a social conscious component to their business?
Brilliant. See, I love this. This is the heart of America. This is what makes us special from everybody else. Do you know we're the most? I'm gonna answer the question. Yes. Do you know we're the most philanthropic nation on the planet? Yes, it's partly because of the tax laws, charitable contributions and such. But it is in our soul. It's in our DNA to give back. This doesn't happen in Europe. This doesn't happen in the Middle East. No small business owner says, "What can I do to give back?" It's unbelievable. Big companies don't make the $100 billion commitments. $100 million commitments like they're making right now to these any place in the world but here. Now, you can go to hopecommitments.org right now. This is part of a larger plan you're going to see roll out within the month. Hopecommitments.org and make a self-styled commitment to intern 1 kid in your business. Intern 1, 2, 3 young people. You can also go soon to the Hope Virtual Volunteer Network. Hope Virtual Volunteer Network will be stood up within 3 weeks, and you'll be able to offer your expertise as a small business owner, as an accountant, as a CPA, whatever, as an insurance professional. I have 2 hours a month that I can lean in, and we're going to assign that through a time bank to a worthwhile young striving entrepreneur or business owner in America who's trying to come up from nothing. So if you don't have time, you have money, you can donate to us or Urban League or La Raza or Raja's Entrepreneurship Center, whatever inspires you. If you have time but no money, you can invest your time in the time bank we're creating through hopecommitments.org and other organizations. But clearly, the questions to me, I'm going to be scaling up a time bank that's going to be national that will take hopefully tens of thousands of professional hours from the GDP creators in this country who want to intern somebody, apprentice somebody, mentor somebody, role model somebody, support somebody. It's about a hand up philosophy, not a hand out philosophy. It's about teaching folks to fish at scale.
That's a wonderful advice, and I think that also ties to our next segment here. I shared with you, and we discussed when we met earlier, that the Lehigh Valley also has a very thriving Hispanic community here in the Valley. And if you really walk in where I am at here in South Bethlehem, there are a number of Hispanic businesses, and you can say the same thing about Allentown, which is not that far from here. So Dr. Myra Pina, who's the executive director of the Fay Foundation, she works a lot with Hispanic students. So she has a question for you, and I'm going to follow that up I'm looking at the question, a Q&A that is coming up, and there are some really interesting questions. I think that, that can really follow her question.
By the way, the second president of Mexico in 1555 was mulatto of African descent, but of Spanish origin. So there's a lot of linkages. There were slaves in Mexico before there were ever slaves in the United States. There's all this interconnectedness between the groups. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Myra Pena. I'm the Executive Director of the Fifth Foundation. Every summer since 2009, we've been offering a 5-week entrepreneurial training program for local Hispanic high school students. To date, 312 students have gone through our program, and 68% of those students have been female. Do you have any recommendations or suggestions on how we can attract more male students to our program? Thank you.
Oh, it's a brilliant program, by the way, first of all. It's all role modeling. People follow what they see. You need to get the men that you have in the program, get them to do videos, 2-minute videos, have them use their social media accounts to share that, get 10 of their friends to share that, and basically use them as ambassadors to get other men in the program. Men are not as comfortable with their emotions as women. Women tend to be much more comfortable in their own skin. So you have to sort of lean in a little bit more to get a man to be vulnerable and to admit that it's okay. So a man sort of needs to know it's okay. A woman sort of a woman knows it's okay. A man needs to know it's okay and be made to know it's okay through the association with their peers. So that would be my number one example. But what I was going to say more broadly is I really love to see you scale that program. That, by the way, the challenge you have with men is the same problem in the Black community. A lot of the HBCU attendees at the historically Black college universities are women. A lot of Black households are run 70% by Black women. And that's because of how society has treated Black and Latino men by not giving them the real shots and opportunity. And a man's defined by what he does. A woman tends to be more about familia, it's who she's with. Like a man, it's not about roles, it's about a woman. A woman is just more intuitive. She's more of a feeler. So a woman, it's about family. The man wants to build that house. She wants to make it a home. And so that spirit makes a woman just more comfortable with even things of inequality. She can philosophize about it. A man don't philosophize about it, which is why if he can't provide for his family, he's not showing up at home. It goes back to self-esteem, it goes back to healing, what I was saying earlier. And white men have had all of the economic opportunity. And if you're a Black or Latino man, if your choice is to be a trash collector and your woman is an engineer, it may not give you the best feeling in the world unless you've learned to love yourself. So men tend to just say, oh, I'm good, and go do something else. And we've got to just break that cycle and create new role models. Here's some inspiration for you. The book Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell, University of Illinois study, proved that with 5% role models, every community stabilizes.
That's a wonderful advice, John. Yeah, so we are moving into our last 10 minutes of our segment here, and I want to keep your time in mind here. And I would like to start with this question because I think this is a pretty powerful question from one of our students, and and it'll lead to also our ending of our program, with a couple of other questions to follow up. So the question is, I'm a single mother, and my child and I are currently homeless and couch surfing because I removed us from a domestic violence situation. I work full-time and I'm attending college part-time here at Northampton in hopes to further my education and transfer to a 4-year college afterwards to gain my bachelor's degree. I have absolutely no help from family. It is just me and my son. What advice would you have to ensure success so I can give my son a better life?
I think you're already doing it. I'm not going to say to you that this is going to be easy or quick, or you're going to have next week things will be different. No, I struggle. You already know I was homeless. I already told you that, but I struggle. For the first 35 years of my life, I mean, everybody just wrote me off. He's not serious. John O'Brien. Yeah, financial literacy. First they ignore you, then they criticize you. Then you keep at it, then they try to copy you, then you win. First they ignore you, then they criticize you. You keep at it, then they try to copy you, then you win. Your advantage is to never give up. If you just never give up, literally, failure is lazy. Failure is lazy. It will give up before you will. Hope, it like love, is a self-redeeming fuel. So the more hope you have, the more self-love you have, the more hope and self-love you'll build, and that will subsidize the fact that you don't have any money. And no mission with integrity will ever die for lack of funds, whether it's a person or an organization. So you're going to get people in organizations like this one who will intercede with you at key times to give you a little encouragement, give you a little help. Just like this, I want to send you a copy of my book, autographed by me, with a $500 bill in it, or 5 $100 bills in it. Now, just make sure that the money don't disappear. We're going to write a check. But we're going to make sure that Roger gets that. And see, you didn't even ask for anything. You didn't know I was going to say that. And somebody else is going to be inspired. You may be the richest person on the planet if everybody figures out how to help you out. And then you got to figure out how to pay it back, pay it forward, pay it backwards after you get hooked up. But it starts with your attitude. I can win the lottery and give a homeless guy $1 million and he'll be broke in 6 months. If nothing changes here, nothing's going to change here. So you're already halfway there. And I hope you're smiling right now. Coincidence is God's way of staying anonymous.
Absolutely, and I'm pretty sure sees as well, John. And thank you, for your generosity.
And no, I don't have $500 for the next person.
So before we get into our last question for the evening here, as I'm going through a lot of these questions, a kind of like a repeating theme here, what advice do you give for an aspiring young entrepreneur? And I want to add something else to that. So let's say if you have to give three pieces of advice to an aspiring young entrepreneur, no matter where they are in their scale or in their journey, what would those be?
Hustle, hustle, and hustle. I mean, this is not complicated. You just have to outrun failure. You got to get up early, stay up late. An entrepreneur works 18 hours a day to keep from getting a job. No one's giving you anything. I wore a t-shirt on a video, I think it was yesterday. It said, stop complaining, nobody cares. I mean, I don't mean that literally, but I mean, everybody's got problems. Like, you got to just get out there and hustle. And hustle, if you don't have here's a piece of magic. Getting rich, getting paid is different than building wealth. I was on the beach in the Bahamas with my wife, and the guy was like, who's renting jet skis. Hey man, show me. Everybody wants to come in. John, I know you. I've seen your videos. Tell me how to get rich. I don't know how to get rich. Oh man, you're lying to me. Tell me how to get rich. I have no idea how to get rich. Oh man, you just messing with me. Tell me how to get. Look, I just told you, I don't know how to get rich. I can tell you how to build wealth. It's a different thing. You want to get rich? You can be a drug dealer and get rich. You can be a gangster and get rich. You can rent jet skis, I guess, and get rich. That's just money. Money is just a means of transferring value. But if you get rich, you can also go broke. Building wealth is a mindset, and you build wealth in your sleep. When you go to Northampton, you get education, and you go to sleep. It's going to bake into your right brain, your creative mind, and go over to your left brain, your logical mind. And you're going to wake up tomorrow with a software upgrade. You're going to be smarter tomorrow if you get some rest than you were when you went to bed. If you take $1, don't say you can't afford to invest, because you go and waste $20 at the crab shack tonight at some little crappy restaurant. Okay, don't tell me you can't invest. You got $5, you went to Starbucks. Take that $5 and put it in fractional share investing. Ride this market all the way up. Stocks go up and down, but they always keep going up. Go buy fractional real estate, fractional share investment. For $5, you can invest in the stock market. Invest at $5 in the stock market and watch it become $7 in 2 weeks, and $10 in 3 months. And every time you invest a little bit more. So whether it's small business, education, entrepreneurship, the stock market, real estate, you build wealth in your sleep. but you hustle during the day. So your 9 to 5 finances your 5 to 9, and your 9 to 5 creates your new 9 to 5, if that makes any sense. Your day goes into a rhythm. Your 9 to 5 is where you make money. Your 5 to 9 is where you build your dream. And then you bake that when you're asleep, and you compound that. That's how you make real wealth, compounding of interest. So if you don't have any money, you don't have any wealth, you don't have any family structure, you don't have any relationship capital, okay, don't you have hustle? Then hustle on hustle creates what? More hustle, compounding. You will just simply outrun failure. When I hit the floor tomorrow morning, Lucifer will say, "Oh crap, he's up. What is he saying about you?"
That is great advice, John. Absolutely. You know, one of the hallmark of entrepreneurial mindset is this notion of persistency, right? And also, you know, building some amount of street smarts inside you so that you never, you know, look back, or you keep on getting up and never take, you know, no for an answer. Absolutely.
Resiliency.
Absolutely. So I'm going to, I'm going to end our evening here. And first of all, it has been a pleasure, discussing this topic with you, and also picking your brains on the concept of entrepreneurial mindset. So Professor Bill Mutimer has our final question, for the evening for you.
There is no question that our current reality is dominated by the pandemic. Along with new opportunities, the pandemic has also created a level of fear and despair. As a parting thought, what are some basic steps that people should take to raise their confidence and self-esteem?
Get a grip. I mean, folks want you to be confused. They want you to be afraid. I mean, what did Warren Buffett say? When people are greedy, be afraid. When people are afraid, be greedy. I mean, my billionaire friends have made $300 billion in a pandemic. Do you think they were sitting around shaking in their boots? They're like, ooh, a crisis. Never let a crisis go to waste. They weren't wishing a crisis on you. They weren't wishing a crisis on their family. A crisis happened. But listen, when was the last big gold rush in this country? 2009, right? And when all my black and brown friends were fretting about the subprime mortgage crisis and all these crooks and these criminals, and who didn't go to jail, by the way, most of them, my Wall Street friends were being non-emotional, and they just looked at the math. I love math because math does not have an opinion. And they bought homes that, by the way, doesn't matter what your opinion is, people lost their homes because of financial literacy, because of abuse. All that's true. Let's keep the emotions out of the conversation so I can answer the question. Whether you like it or not, the people lost their homes in 2009, as has been happening since the Great Depression, I might add. Okay, when they lose the home, who buys it? You can buy it and do something good with it. Get your church to buy it. Buy it, rehab it, and rent it. Buy it, rehab it, and flip it. Buy it, rehab it, and hold it. Buy it, rehab it, and use it as a homeless care shelter. I don't really care what you do with it, but they aren't growing any more land, and it's just going to go up in value. What Wall Street did in 2009, they're no smarter than you. They bought it for 20 cents on the dollar, rehabbed it for 30 cents, up to 50 cents of its value, rented it, which now makes it pay for itself because there's an affordable housing crisis in America, held on to it for 5 years, and then sold it. And when they sold it, they made a fortune. I know because I bought the houses from them when they sold them. And in 3 years, 2017, I started this little venture called the Promise Homes Company. And one of my billionaire friends invested with me. By the way, so we're going over, but this is a really important story. It's in the book, but it's a really important story. This is my own software upgrade. So I fly all the way across the country. I'm still in my thriving mentality. Now I hadn't quite acknowledged that I was a winner. I didn't realize I was a winner because people had been telling me I wasn't invaluable. So I still had a insecurity like I wasn't a winner. So I was a winner acting like a thriver. So I fly across the country to meet with Tony Rester, a billionaire, to ask him for $50,000 for Operation Hope. Your people watching this think that's a lot of money. It's not. And I fly across the country. It probably cost me $5,000 to fly. I don't know, $3,000 across. I get there. And he said, yeah, I'll give you 50 grand. What else you got? Well, no, that's where I came from. What else you got? That's what I wanted, John, the charity I understand, but I didn't meet with you because of charity. I gave you 50 grand to get out of my face. He says, what else you got? Oh, I got this real estate thing I'm thinking about doing. What's that? I told him about 3 minutes. No business plan, no PowerPoint. No, I'll do it, he said. You'll do what? I'll invest in that. I didn't ask you to invest in that. I'll do it. No, it's already have an investor. Your partner, Mike Argetti said, no, I'm going to look. He wouldn't shut up. He threw $3 million at me. Now, a week later, Raja, Elizabeth, a week later, Bill, we have a conference call. He said, I've been thinking about your idea. Why do 3 million when we can do 30 million? Why do 30 million when we can do 130 million? A good idea, you should double down on it. Let's do 130 million. Now, if I didn't believe in myself, if I didn't think I was a winner by then, what would I have done? Oh, no. Let's just do, no, we don't need to do that. What would he have said? You're the wrong guy. I'm riding the wrong jockey. See, he thought he had bet right on me, not the real estate. Make a long story short, he ended up doing that investment. We built that from zero to $110 million today in 3 years. Part-time, affordable housing, $1,200 a month rent. I'm the largest owner of single-family rental homes in America who happens to be African-American in 3 years with 5% of my time. And I'm now deciding to build that into $1 billion company. What can you do? So this crisis is an opportunity, unless you see it as just a crisis. The world has changed. You gotta now, when you're being, here's my drop the mic quote. When you're being run out of town, get in front of the crowd and make it like a parade.
Great advice, John. Thank you for joining us this evening. It has been a pleasure listening to you and interacting with you, and all the work that you are doing. Good luck, and would like to stay connected with you. And like I said, at some point in time, we certainly would love to see you at Northampton.
Well, the president made a mistake. He invited me to the campus. I'm coming. And my birthday mate, Elizabeth, born the same day. I'm coming to give her a real hug.
There you go. So for those of you that are listening to us this evening, this lecture will be available through a video online, and all you've got to do is go to our northampton.edu website, and there is a 2-hour NEH webpage, and the video would be available for you to watch. And again, thank you for spending your evening with us. It has been a truly pleasure for me to host this program and also moderate the session with John. So John, thank you.
Peace and light. Go change the world.
Yeah.
This is your time to be the greatest generation.
Thank you.